This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutsky is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutsky.
As promised, we are now joined by Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. The segment's called Ask Todd because it's your chance to ask Todd your questions about your estate plan. The studio line here is 888-205-2263. That is the number if you have a question that you'd like to ask Todd about your situation right now live on air. So we'll open up the phone lines. Again, that number is 888-205-2263. I know we were pretty busy with calls in the last week or two, so get calling if you want to make sure that you're at the front of the queue. 888-205-2263. Mr. Lutsky, how are you today?
I am never better, and you?
Doing pretty well. I'm excited about a new business idea I've been working on in my head.
Oh, well, yeah? How's that working out?
The thought is a new pillow company making corduroy pillows. I'm trying to make headlines. So that's the goal. We'll see how it all goes. Todd, I want to talk to you a little bit about the process of qualifying for Medicaid in the event that someone is heading into a nursing home or any other kind of long-term care situation.
Yeah.
Let's say that you have retirement accounts. Mm-hmm. IRA, Roth IRA, 401k, whatever it may be. How are those treated when it comes to qualifying for Medicaid, and what options are available if someone has retirement accounts out there?
So it's great that you picked on the most difficult asset to deal with. Was that planned?
That's what I do.
Today?
Yes, it was planned.
Great. Well, you hit the nail right on the head because that is probably one of the hardest assets to deal with because IRAs, as much as we talk about advanced planning with trusts and putting assets in those trusts to avoid, this kind of problem, you can't move IRAs when you're alive by putting them into a trust. Because if you took all the money out of the IRA, great. If you took all the money out of the IRA to put it in the trust, you would get whacked with income tax. And so, if you had a $500,000 IRA and you said, I want to put that in the trust to protect it, and you pulled $500,000 out, get ready to give the government about 40% in taxes. So you can't do it. You want to live off those assets. So I guess as a planning technique, and then we'll talk about last minute, that's the kind of asset you leave outside the trust. Put your other investment portfolios in the trust, and your house and your vacation home, those can all go in the trust, and live more likely off the assets outside the trust, which is the IRA. Spend that down. Another reason it's a good idea to spend it down is not only because it's technically at risk, but also because the Secure Act says if you leave that to kids when you die, they have to take it out over 10 years. And so it's very possible that if they're busy working and have a nice job and you leave like $1 million IRA to your children, they could end up taking out, close to $100,000 a year in income, pushing them into a higher bracket. So I think it might be cheaper for you in a tax perspective to also live off of it. And again, plus it's at risk. That said, afterwards, when you are applying for Medicaid last minute, if you do have that IRA outside your trust, or if you've never done planning, which is what we talk about with the guide, last minute things to do, at least with an IRA, it's considered excess resources, and likely you can convert it to an annuity for the surviving spouse if there is one, or if you're single, you can just convert it to an annuity inside there, and then it's that conversion of the annuity that allows it to be made from a countable asset to a non-countable asset so that you can get eligible for Medicaid and you'll just collect a monthly check, which you give to the nursing home, but at least you're on Medicaid and not private pay.
Talking with Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. If you have a question that you'd like to ask Todd right here on the air, the studio line is 888-205-2263. Again, that is 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we are going right to your calls at that point. So that studio number again is 888 888-205-2263. Quick break, then it's your calls with Todd.
Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky every Wednesday at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As promised, time for your calls with Todd Lutsky. We've got Bob in Woburn queued up first. Bob, you're on with Todd Lutsky.
Hello. Hey, Todd, I'm a customer of yours. I got a couple quick questions. You spoke about an IRA, the tax implications of that, if you want to get it protected. Mm-hmm. What about my Roth? I've been rolling my Roth. I haven't been working for a couple of years, so I have been rolling my Roth yearly to stay in the same bracket. And, the Roth has been open for 20-plus years. So how do you protect that?
How much money's in the Roth?
About
400,000. 400,000.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a big number, and you've already gotten 20 years worth of tax-free growth out of that. You have Roths and IRAs are treated very similar when it comes to dying. They're all included in your estate. The required minimum distributions as to how they must come out after you die are the same. It's just that when they come out of the Roth, of course, it's tax-free. So if you want to protect the Roth IRA in advance of going into a nursing home, and it's a large enough number here that, maybe it's not a bad idea, you can take that Roth, empty it, and put it into a trust, a brokerage account, of course, and get it invested however you want inside the trust. Just remember, when you do that, the money coming out of the Roth is tax-free. But when you invest it inside the trust, it will no longer be a Roth. It will be a regular investment account. Now, in order to get tax-free growth, you're going to need to buy probably some kind of, tax-free, like muni bonds or something that doesn't generate taxable income if you want to continue with the tax-free growth. Otherwise, you can invest it any way you want, and it will be taxable. But it's different than the IRA, because at least with the Roth, you're able to pull the money out and not lose 40% to the government, and put the balance in the trust. And this way, you can at least put the entire amount in the trust. Now, the only reason I'm really mentioning it to you is because you've already enjoyed 20 years worth of tax-free growth. Maybe you say, that's enough. I'm happy with that. That was great. Now I need to protect it from the nursing home. I'm okay putting it in the trust. Remember, you will have a new 5-year waiting period when you do that. So that's sort of the advice on the Roth. That's a great question at the end of the day, though, folks. And these are things that come up all the time when you talk about last-minute things to do, right? People who have maybe done their planning and have things outside the trust like IRAs and Roths and find themselves faced with going in the nursing home, or people who have done no planning and find themselves faced with going in the nursing home. How are we going to protect these assets that are still at risk? This guide, Last-Minute Medicaid Eligibility Techniques, will show you that. It'll show you how to make countable assets non-countable. It'll show you how to deal with a home, which is a special asset, rental property, vacation property. And by the way, these assets are treated differently if you're single versus married. So the guide explains both of those. My point here is, don't just write the check when you're heading into the nursing home, right? Call, get the guide, learn that there are probably things you can do last minute to get eligible for Medicaid. The number is 866-848-5699, or go to the website legalexchangeshow.com. You can download it there. Again, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
Todd, I've got another caller for you. We've got Richard in Wellesley. Richard, what's your question for Todd Lutsky?
Hi, Todd. I have a question regarding the stepped-up value of property.
Yes.
My wife and I, we both have our individual revocable trust.
Revocable.
Revocable.
Got it. Yep.
And we're fortunate enough to have multiple properties.
Okay.
Recently, we put the properties, like 2 of them in her name and 2 of them in my name.
Do you mean in her trust and your trust?
Yes.
Yeah, because you don't want them in your name. That's not helping. So, all right. So you got them split up between 2 trusts. Got it.
Right. With the expectation, for example, when I die, that my wife will get inherit the property at stepped up value.
Correct. Everything in your trust on the date of death will receive a step up in basis.
Right. So what if can you change your trust? In other words, could I take a property that's in her name and put it in mine, and then take the day before she would have passed away, for example? Is there a...
So you're I think you're kind of beeping in and out a little bit there, but I'll try to address it. So can you transfer assets the day before someone dies and get a step up in basis? Well, I mean, there is this one problem. I think between husband and wives, it probably won't matter. But, you see this all the time with other people, right? Can you transfer an asset to, let's say, my mom? Let's say she was dying, and I wanted to transfer it up to her, and then she leaves it directly to me. If I transfer something and make a gift, and then I get it back within a year of the transfer because of the death of the individual, then 1014E applies, which says you don't get the step up. So you can't just give something away, like a day or two before someone dies to the person who you know is dying, and then have that person leave the asset back to you. If it comes back to you, then you will not get that step up in basis. There's some tricks you can do with trusts to maybe have it not go back to you. So with a spouse, it might go back to your remainder share of her trust, or the remainder, or the marital share. Then arguably 1014E might not apply. But as a general rule, don't try to do that.
Todd, I've got one more caller queued up for you here. We've got a couple minutes, so we have to be a little bit quick. But Juliet in Nantucket, you are on with Todd Lutsky.
Hi, good morning. So I have a question, not so much about Medicare, but just in terms of a trust.
Uh-huh.
So if I have a portfolio that's managed by an investment company for my husband and myself, and we have a house on Nantucket, and we have a vacation house.
Uh-huh.
What should be in the trust?
So
Is it a marital trust, or? And I have one child. So
one child. So you got a married couple, one child. You've got a home on Nantucket, a vacation home. I mean, those two properties are probably very valuable in and of itself. I have no idea how much is in your investment portfolio, but I mean, if we're talking about multiple millions of dollars here, which I suspect we are, the estate plan is, and the reason I need to know those numbers when I try to answer the questions is it's that dollar amount that drives the type of plan we do, the type of trusts that we do. So at a bare minimum, you folks are going to need basic revocable trust planning, I would think, not knowing your age or anything else. And then there's no magic in the name. It would just be like, if it was me, it would be Todd Lutsky Family Trust. So we just use your name. And it's those trusts that put all these assets, home, vacation home, investment portfolio, put them in the trust and then live your life. So that's the name. There's no magic in the name. It's the type of trust that we need, which is revocable. Now, you mentioned marital and remainder shares. That's what happens when one of you die. When one of you die, then it breaks down into these marital and remainder shares, and those are really designed to help us cram down and shelter assets on the first death so that there's less assets available for taxation on the second death, thereby reducing your estate tax and avoiding probate.
Mr. Lutsky, thank you so much for the time today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com.